Hey again, I'm Pete Andruskevich, a current Thurston parent. In this video, I want to address the equity of staging Thurston, some misconceptions about our staging plan, and how staging won't delay a new building, increase our taxes, or jeopardize the bond. Now first, let me be clear. I know firsthand that the current building is overcrowded. The teacher's lounge, kitchen, and even a janitor's closet have all been repurposed into learning spaces because of the overcrowding, not to mention having the kids take lunch in shifts because there isn't enough room in the NPR for everyone at once. This absolutely takes a toll on teachers, staff, and the kids, and needs to be addressed much more quickly than in 6 or more years. Now, staging was originally the plan for Thurston, as it was for all the elementaries in Northeast Ann Arbor back in 2019 when we all voted on and passed the bond. So, what changed? Well, enrollment declined across Ann Arbor, although not so much in the Northeast, which is expected to grow according to AAPS's numbers, and suitable land for a permanent 4th elementary school couldn't be found. Because of this, Thurston is told that we can't stage and have to suffer through years of distraction and safety concerns with the safety fence 5 feet away from our current building and modular unit. But King can still stage, and Logan doesn't have to deal with construction 5 feet away either. How is that equity when more than a third of the kids that will all be entering Clegg have had to deal with the consequences of that, while the rest haven't? However, for the span of a few years, we are effectively getting a 4th school with the new Logan school. If we stage there, then none of our kids and teachers need to deal with the noise, dust, distraction, and safety concerns, just like all the other Northeast schools. Staging is considered as best practiced by OSHA and many other construction companies, and 10 other AAPS schools are staging for the new construction or major renovations according to the bond timeline. King, Burns Park, Angel, Eberwhite, Bach, A2 Steam, Pittsfield, Abbott, Hazley, and A2 Open. Why not Thurston? Please check out the other Let Thurston Play video for details on how Thurston can fit into the new Logan, despite what the bond committee has said. Unfortunately, there have been some falsehoods and fear-mongering that has been spread around recently, speculating on a bunch of negative outcomes that could happen because we had the audacity to advocate for an alternative plan. I'd like to address each of these in more detail, with facts, information from the very helpful office hours, and actions that could be taken to avoid them. First up, could the whole project for New Thurston be delayed or just stop because of us? The short answer is no. Either the bond committee's plan proceeds as it is, or Thurston is staged at New Logan, which buys another 2 years for a new site plan at Thurston to be drawn up. As a quick refresher, our proposed plan would avoid all of these issues and compromises by staging Thurston at the new Logan School once it is completed in 2 school years according to the schedule, getting Thurston into a badly needed new building at the same time as the current plan would, but without the distractions and safety concerns. While the Thurston population is staged at the new Logan site, demolition, construction, geothermal, and grounds work all happens on the new Thurston over the following 2 school years. Then, after New Thurston building is complete, the Thurston community moves into it. Meanwhile, Logan students are delayed by 2 school years moving into their new building. The modular classrooms at Thurston should now be moved to Logan to be available for growth there, as well as for staging King at the current Logan building per the district's plan, but delayed 2 years too. If our proposed plan is adopted, any changes to the new Thurston building location on the site could be worked out in the next 2 years before any demolition or construction would start. This is plenty of time to complete this work, especially since we've already seen new site proposals that included changes to the building itself happen between September and December of 2024. The only way that Thurston would be delayed by 6 to 7 years and pushed to the back of the line would be if the bond committee were feeling vindictive about needing to change their subpar plans and chose to disregard the clear need for a new school at Thurston. No one desires that outcome, and it is completely within the Board of Education trustees' ability to prevent it while staging to protect our kids' education and equity between schools. Next up, Will staging Thurston cause a citywide tax increase? Again, no. There will be some minor extra costs, such as an additional move and the design of a better site plan for Thurston, but to explain better, we need to take a bit of a dive into how the bond works. I'd like to add here that much of what is shown on the next two slides is derived from conversations with the AAPS Capital team during the office hours that they very helpfully hosted, and thank you again for those, and from information presented at the Board of Education meetings by Marios Dimitriou, an AAPS financial advisor. So, the bond is like a loan, where you can withdraw up to a certain amount to pay for building expenses immediately and pay it back over time with interest. To avoid paying interest on the whole $1 billion bond amount, it is withdrawn in smaller chunks, as shown here, that more closely match the spending rate planned out throughout the project. To pay it back, a variable rate millage is assessed to pay back the bond expenses, aiming for 4.1 mils or 0.41% of real property tax assessed value per year. Now, both property values and the size of the tax base have been increasing faster than planned, which means that the same tax rate is bringing in more money in revenue than had originally been accounted for. This will allow the bond to be paid off more quickly than planned. Our plan with staging will cause the start of construction on two buildings to be delayed by 2 years each. Any time an expense is delayed substantially, this will increase the cost because inflation makes the materials, labor costs, etc. go up. In construction, this is called an escalation cost and is by far the largest quoted cost associated with staging at roughly $5 to $6 million. However, this number is deceiving because the delay also changes when we need to pay for it and thus when the interest begins accumulating on it. You pay for future expenses with future dollars, and both are increasing over time. Since the bond is ultimately paid for by a millage that is also bringing in a larger amount of revenue over time, the net effect is a wash, and the millage will not need to increase. The only issue, therefore, is that the escalation costs will eat more into that hard $1 billion cap on the bond. Except the bond is not the only way we're paying for all of this. The current sinking fund, which is directly funded by a constant millage to pay for buildings and maintenance, and expected future sinking funds yet to be voted on, are also used to pay for this work. The total cost to bring facilities up to a good condition was estimated to be about $1.6 billion over 20 years in the facilities condition assessment from 2018, well more than the $1 billion voted on for the bond. Both of these have been used and will continue to be used for construction expenses since they can both pay for many of the same things. The bond alone was never going to pay for the whole project, and adding the sinking funds gives us a lot more flexibility to the financials and the schedule. Let's get back to focusing on the bond portion, getting to the last misconception, that staging Thurston and delaying the construction of these two new buildings by 2 years each will jeopardize the current or any future bond. So, once a chunk of bond money is withdrawn, it is immediately invested to provide some return in the time before it is spent to help offset the interest paid. This is called arbitrage. If the AAPS collects more than a certain amount of arbitrage from unspent bond money, this is what can jeopardize the current and future bonds due to laws intended to prevent various forms of financial shenanigans with public money. Therefore, it's very important to match the bond withdrawals with the projected expenses. With the delay in the start of construction and thus in spending, there is a risk of excessive arbitrage for this portion of the bond withdrawal. Fortunately, this is an easy thing to solve. All the Board of Education would need to do is amend the bond withdrawal amount that was approved back in December and will be withdrawn in a couple of months to remove the money for New Thurston and then append it to subsequent withdrawals. And just like that, the bond is safe, financial impacts are minimized, and the Thurston community gets into a new school in the same time frame without all the distraction, safety concerns, and site compromises brought about by not staging. We have a once-in-generations chance with this bond to really improve AAPS for the future without compromising the learning environment, safety, or the site layout that really makes Thurston special. Why would we throw all of that away when we don't have to? All for some misguided notion that staging at New Logan can't happen, or would risk the bond, or would be too costly. If you were concerned about your kids learning right next to construction for 4 years, about the lack of play and green space available in the district's plan for the new Thurston grounds and recess space during construction, about the increased risk of flooding that is being ignored by the district and their construction company, or about the damage to the Thurston Nature Center, please join us at letthurstonplay.com, where you can find all of this information, and by letting the AAPS Board of Education know at their meetings through the link in the video description that we need a better plan. Thank you.